I'm Dr. Paul Schroelfox. I got my PhD in clinical psychology in the United States. I work here as an educational psychologist. I'm the CEO of PsychTech. We're a company that imports tests for psychology, so speech-language pathology and therapists and all other professions to Israel. We translate them, adapt them for use in the Israeli population to Hebrew and Arabic. And today we're going to be talking about the Asky together with Rachel Levi, who actually composed, created, and published the test together with us. So Rachel, perhaps tell us a little bit about yourself and then tell us about the Asky.
Sure, nice to be here, Paul. So I'm a mother of 5 children, 2 on the spectrum, and a science editor. And the Asky is it's an autism screening instrument. It's an autism screening system that works with children aged 4 to 18 through to their 19th birthday. Children whose intelligence is in the normal range, who are verbal, but they have behavioural difficulties or communication difficulties that are causing concern. So at its heart there's a digital questionnaire with 30 questions and an algorithm that are together trying to detect the presence of possible autism. So basically it's coming to answer the question, should assessment of this child include autism?
Okay, great. So where do you see, or how do you see the Asky system being used?
So it's designed to be filled out by parents. Parents can access it independently, or it's possible that they'll be referred to it by community healthcare providers. So we're talking child's doctor, occupational therapists, teachers, speech therapists. So people who are not autism specialists themselves, but they're wondering if perhaps the child needs to be referred to one. So the screening takes place at the community level. Before a decision is made about whether it's worthwhile, there's any need to proceed to full diagnosis by specialists at the clinical level.
Okay, great. So tell me again, how does the Asky screen for autism as opposed to, let's say, diagnose?
Okay, so it's probing for the questions, are probing for whether the child has difficulties with interpersonal communication, in relationships, how she is with change. It's based on the DSM-5. Which is gives the formal criteria for diagnosing autism, and it covers all 7 sections of symptoms that for autism spectrum disorder, ASD, that are given in that manual.
For those who don't know, the DSM-5 is what we call sort of the Bible of diagnosis, although I'm a little bit wary of giving it that level of importance, but it really does help us think about and put people on a certain spectrum or help us think about clinicians in certain diagnoses.
Right, so it's looking at those symptoms, but it's screening for autism. It's not looking at everything.
Right.
All of the criteria, the child's history, what else it could be. It's focused on the autism symptoms. Yeah.
So you said it works with kids from the ages of 4 to 18. How does that work?
Right. So we don't expect the same sort of communication skills or style from 5-year-old as an 8-year-old, from a 9-year-old as a 13 or 18-year-old, and we take that into account by using different examples for each question. So every question of the 30 questions is accompanied by a raft of examples, and they are age group specific. So there are actually 3 age ranges within that 4 to 18 period, and depending on the child's age range, that's the examples that the parent sees.
Because we know that not everybody at every different age communicates the same, and nobody communicates like a 17 or 18-year-old in any event. So tell me, how easy is the Asky to use?
So it's very easy to use. It's available accessible from any device. The parent gives an agree or disagree response to each question. They can also mark, if they so desire, put a check mark beside the examples that are relevant to their child, and also add in free text boxes by every question things that are happening at home, any dilemmas that they have, descriptions. Then they reach the end of the questionnaire, they hit submit, and they immediately get the interpretation, a report that sets out the recommendations, explains them, and suggests next steps.
Okay, so it suggests the next step. So tell me more about the Asky report.
Okay, so it's an important feature of Asky because it's coming to facilitate good communication between the parents and the healthcare providers in the community, whoever those may be. So it includes all responses that the parents gave, all answers to questions that suggest something other than typical development. And it includes all of the examples that the parents checked, and if they added any free text, then the free text is also saved and appears in the report, so nothing is lost. then where the possibility of autism arises, in that instance the report also links between the parents' answers and the official criteria for symptomatics of the symptoms of autism that appear in the DSM-5, that manual we mentioned a moment ago. The Asky is available in 3 languages, English, Hebrew and Arabic. The parent fills it out, completes it in their language of choice, and then can download it in all 3 languages if they want to, so that they can, the caregiver or whoever they're wanting to discuss it with can have it in their language.
So that's right. So I can fill out it in my language and then bring it to somebody who maybe speaks Hebrew or Arabic, or Hebrew or English if I happen to do it in Arabic, and I don't necessarily have to be tied to the language in which I fill it out.
Absolutely.
So then what's good is that it provides a basis for really good constructive conversation and discussion between parents and people in the community, the healthcare providers
That's
and
the
the like.
idea, yeah.
Okay. See, a lot of children often have a diagnosis already. ADHD, learning disabilities, anxiety, depression, and this becomes truer as the kids go through the system. But sometimes it's only much later that the question about autism arises, and by then the kid is already receiving treatment for other diagnoses, and parents wonder whether an autism diagnosis and assessment it would be something that would help the child. How do you address that?
Right. So there's actually 2 aspects to that question. First of all, not every child who has ADHD or anxiety or whatever needs to be checked for autism. It's not a trivial process, so you don't want to run through children through it for no good reason. And the Asky can help identify those who don't need to be assessed. But where a child does need to be assessed for autism, it makes a huge difference, because the treatments and supports that are offered, they're per diagnosis, they're really diagnosis specific. So even when treatments that have the same name, take social skills groups, these are offered to children with ADHD and also to children on the spectrum, but the content is not the same. And nor is the person who's running the group. They have different backgrounds. A social skills group for children with ADHD are looking at getting them to just pay attention to the social cues, maybe slow down their response just slightly so that they can do that. For children on the spectrum, autistic children, those social skills groups are looking at identifying the social cues and understanding them. Similarly for anxiety. Somebody who's anxious about their schoolwork, about how their friends think about them, needs support, but that's different support from somebody who is anxious because they don't understand what people want from them. Or maybe they're completely overwhelmed by the sensory aspects of their environment. So if you want to give targeted, relevant support, you first have to identify the underlying issues. And if autism is there, it needs to be identified, and Asky can help be the first step with that.
Right, because oftentimes a child with ADHD will know what they're supposed to do in any given situation, but just have the trouble of restraining that behavior at the given moment. Oftentimes, kids, boys and girls, adolescents have trouble even getting all the cues together and understanding what I'm picking up from the social surroundings.
Yeah.
Okay, so why the Asky? There must be a lot of questionnaires out there on the internet that can work in some way or another.
The internet is awash with questionnaires, but they were not all created equal. So the Asky, the Hebrew Asky, was researched in Israel by myself with Professor Mark Stokes on Israeli children and adolescents. The results were published in a leading peer-reviewed journal called Autism, and they were excellent. The Asky correctly identified 92% of our autistic child and adolescent participants. So that's really great. It's the only screening tool that's been tested here in Israel. So it's the only one that we know works with the Israeli population, which is different from the Chinese population, the Spanish population, and what have you, different norms here. So there's also the issue of availability. The Asky is a screen that was designed for parents to be able to use independently, and it provides them with the interpretation. The other screens are meant for use by clinicians. They're gate kept. You need the right qualifications, you need suitable training, and you need to know how to interpret it. So it excludes most parents from accessing.
Okay, so that again, the Asky was really developed here to work with kids in Israel. I'm sure it's appropriate for other places as well.
Yeah.
But it really was developed, and we know that it works, and like you said, 92% of the time. So another question is, given the way things we're seeing in the field now, does the Asky work equally as well with girls as it does with boys?
Right, so the Asky approaches the issue of girls and boys in 2 different ways. First of all, the questionnaire itself. Both the questions and the examples were written with deep thought and consideration of how Asky of how autism manifests in girls no less than boys. So at the level of the questionnaire, taken into account. Then at the level of the research, the autism group in our research actually included a greater proportion of girls than there are among the diagnosed children in Israel.
So that's really great, because I know as a clinician I often find it difficult because many of the tools that we use were developed thinking, I think, about how boys are. And so we're saying in the Asky we're thinking about girls and boys.
Right.
So okay, so again, so to recap, the Asky screens girls and boys who need it for autism spectrum disorder, as its formal definition in the DSM, and then it immediately provides a set of recommendations in the report.
That's correct. And the report itself gives not only the result, it also explains it and puts everything together in one place so you can have a fruitful discussion. And it's going to be a big help for parents who have concerns about their child's behaviour or social situation, or who've been told that they should really consider taking their child to be assessed for autism.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so thank you, Rachel. And we'll just mention the Asky is available for parents at askeyautism.com and for professionals via PsychTech's P-Tech system. So thanks very much.
Thank you.